It was 1974. I was a young dude hanging out and playing with my best friend and the next door neighbor. A kid who became known to me as John the Bully. John the Bully would regularly push around my best friend, a young boy who was very small for his age. One day, John the Bully took it to the next level and he smacked my buddy. And as a superhero fan, I still am, I knew this wasn't okay, so I puffed out my chest and came to my buddy's rescue. Well, at least I tried. It wasn't long before my best friend and I went home, beat up and crying. You know, that hard cry with snot, drool, and everything else that comes along with it. Apparently, I'm not a one-trial learner, as the scenario played itself out repeatedly. Like this: antecedent, friend gets smacked, behavior, little Paulie comes to the rescue, consequence, I get smacked, he gets smacked, cry, snot, drool, repeat. One day my father got tired of me being beat up by John the Bully, so as he tells it, he gave me a big Tonka truck. And if you know the Tonka trucks back in the 70s, they weren't like the cheap light ones of today. They were metal and heavy. A young man and victim of bullying himself, he didn't want to see this happen to me, so he told me to go out there and hit John the Bully right across the face with it. Folks, I'm not advocating for this at all. I'm just letting you know the story. So as the story goes, I marched down the driveway, crossed the threshold of John the Bully's yard, walked right up to him, and smacked him as hard as I could with the Tonka truck. After a brief and bewildered look, John the Bully looks at me and he laughs. Can you imagine that? He just laughs. I mean, I don't know, man. That's some scary shit. My dad, watching from our yard next door, runs over and he grabs me, picks me up, runs back to our house, and as he tells it, he quickly locks the door and we both peek through the shades, worried that John the Bully is coming to get us both. You know, during my youth, I can remember seeing other kids being bullied and feeling the need to stick up for them just as I was being bullied. I knew it would be the right thing to do. I just didn't have the courage to do it. So why did I tell this story? Well, I was watching a video by my good buddy Brett DiNovi about being bullied. I kind of felt simpatico with Brett, as he and I both gravitated to combat sports, which likely helped us to regain our dignity and self-respect, overcome adversity, and even use those bullying experiences as a springboard. But there are many folks who aren't fortunate enough to find some sort of outlet or source of empowerment. It's sad because bullying exists everywhere, not just in schools between kids, but as adults in the workplace. And this is important given most of us spend a majority of our waking life in the workplace. In my article titled Bullying in the Workplace, WTF, I take a look at why bullying occurs. In this video, I'd like to give you a few simple tips for preventing or managing bullying behavior. First off, please know that I am not advocating for the use of violence for dealing with bullies. I haven't been in a street fight in over 2 decades, and I hope I'm never in one again. And while I strongly believe in developing skills in the martial arts as a powerful tool for improving your self-esteem and as a way to prevent or manage bully behavior, it's just not for everybody. However, I do believe that everybody should arm themselves with knowledge about the science of human behavior as to why people actually bully. I think they should arm themselves with strategies for avoiding being bullied, and I think they should arm themselves with behavioral techniques for becoming directly assertive when bullying behavior occurs. You know, most bullies actually do not consider themselves bullies. They either rationalize their behavior to make it more acceptable, or their behaviors are so deeply ingrained that it's just the way they interact with some people. So let's dive into a couple of tips that I've learned through experience and my different literature reviews and everything I've done in my life. Tip number 1, assess your own behavior. There's always room for self-improvement. So consider whether you're doing anything to trigger the bad behavior. Let's be honest. Sometimes we might bear some responsibility. And by this, I don't mean to self-blame. Avoid self-blame. People tend to magnify their own errors. The issue isn't typically yours. It's theirs. However, do try to develop an objective and healthy view of your behaviors and the impact of them on the environment. That's a tip that everybody should follow, whether they're being bullied or not. If people have regularly called attention to some of your behaviors over the years, perhaps it's something you might reflect on. Be certain that you're not being too sensitive about different things. One way to judge this is to observe if anybody else at your workplace is being treated similarly. Doesn't mean that you are the issue if they aren't. But if most people are being treated in the same way, well, it becomes much easier to determine whose behavior needs to be shaped up. It's likely not yours. Tip number 2, punish initial bully behavior immediately. This one worked for me very well. It was actually the source of my success for preventing further bullying. If you are 100% certain that somebody has behaved towards you in a way that is highly inappropriate and it is a new or relatively new behavior, punish it. Doing something right away can really have an immediate effect on the likelihood that somebody will try to bully you again in the future. And this goes for the person attempting to bully you and even others witnessing it. Asserting yourself immediately can avoid the occurrence of future bullying behavior. And remember, bullies sample a variety of people like somebody might sample ice cream. Once they get a taste of a response they like, it's on. Heading it off at the beginning can be very powerful. Some people actually choose to ignore, but while this might work for minor junk behavior from folks who aren't bullying, not responding at all can be an issue, as it might signal to the person and others that it's okay to treat you that way. You're essentially inadvertently giving them permission through your non-response, and I never want you to give anybody permission to bully you under any condition. When I say you should respond, I don't mean you should smack them or anything, though I would be lying if I said the thought never passed through my mind when I see folks experiencing bullying, or if somebody tried to initially bully me in whatever way that they might do things. Assert yourself immediately by firmly telling them that their behavior is unacceptable and you won't tolerate it. Now, I wouldn't do this in public if possible. Two wrongs don't make a right, and dressing people down in public is typically wrong. I see teachers do it all the time with students. It's typically a bad idea and can often result in counter control as the bully wants to get back at you. In the classroom, kids tend to want to get back at the teachers, and it creates more of the very misbehavior that they're trying to get rid of. However, I would try to do it immediately. If there are people around, ask the person if you can do this in front of the people, if they would chat with you privately for a moment. Hey, step out here, can I talk to you for a minute? This way you can provide them with your feedback and provide it firmly. No laughing, no smiling, your best business-like voice. Tip number 3. This is actually in 3 parts, so it's really like 3 tips. Accept it, fight it, or flee it. I remember at one point in my career, I would come home every day and complain to my wife for like 6 months every damn day. I was hooked on complaining. Finally, one day my wife looked at me and she said, and I quote, "Stop whining and put your big boy pants on." Of course, my initial reaction wasn't so great. But then after the sting kind of went away, I started to think about it. And I determined that she was right. I was behaving in ways that were keeping me stuck, not moving me forward. Now, for the record, she had been very caring and supportive for 6 months of my whining that I had done every day I came home from work. Now, I'm not advocating that you go tell somebody to stop whining and put their big boy britches on, and I'm not suggesting that you are a whiner if you're venting. You shouldn't call people a whiner or think of yourself as one. My wife had never called me that before or after, but she sensed I needed to be shaken up to get me out of my self-imposed misery. And boy, did she shake me. After being shook, I realized that I had to make a decision. I can either accept things as they were and just commit to the daily work output expected of me. I could take flight, or I could fight. And again, I don't mean physically. Those were my options. Accept the way things were, fight to try to change it, or get the hell out of Dodge. And honestly, I probably would have gotten the hell out of Dodge if I could, but like most of us, I have a family, a mortgage, a car payment, etc. It just wasn't an option at that time. So I chose to fight in my own way, with the goal of later taking flight at a better time after I had generated myself some more choices. Some of the behavior was directed at me, a lot of it was directed at my colleagues, and I hate to see people being treated poorly. I didn't want to be in a culture where I felt people weren't being regularly respected. I felt like I was back in grade school again, trying to sum up the courage to fight the bullies. So I went to each one of the offenders and asked to meet with them privately. I then armed myself with documentation that I collected regarding various incidences of bullying, at least what I perceived was bullying, researched on better approaches, and then proceeded with the meeting. One of the bullies actually cried. I thought it might have been a breakthrough moment, but unfortunately, the behaviors returned relatively quickly. As I mentioned, most folks think they are justified in their bully behavior. They don't see themselves as bullies at all. Now, my fight option was a long-term plan. I decided to go back to school to further my knowledge and eventually carve myself out a new path. That decision has led me to this point in my career, and I don't regret it one bit. I should probably thank the bullies in my life, as they are partially responsible for some of the good choices I've made. So I always like to think it's great to make lemonade out of lemons. At any rate, if you decide to fight, and remember, I don't mean physically, make sure you stick to behaviors when talking to the bullies. Talk specifically about what the bully did or did not do. Based on my experience, I'd avoid talking about feelings. People who care about you actually care about how you feel. Bullies typically don't give a crap. Besides, sometimes this can actually muddy the water and even serve to reinforce bully behavior, as some are actually reinforced by what we call signs of damage. In summary, you can attempt to change the bully's behavior by changing your reaction. You can change your environment. Even if this takes time, at least you know you're moving in the right direction. Or you can accept the conditions as they are. And if you are truly experiencing bullying that's having a negative impact on your work performance, physical or mental health, I would not accept it.